and helping you become educated in some of these different areas that we work day to day, and hopefully help better your communities and some of the efforts that you're doing at home. But this particular master series is about trade shows, and we've been doing trade shows for 28 years now. So we've picked up a lot of errors and things that you shouldn't do at shows, and found a lot of new things, even as of our last show, some things that we could do to make the shows even that much better. So we're excited about being able to share those today with you all. In today's agenda, we're going to meet GSLI. Most of y'all know who we are. We do have some people outside of the organization that we're welcoming today to listen to our presentation, talk a little bit about our speakers, and then we'll have our trade show strategy discussion. Brooke, if you could start us off.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are GSLI, if you haven't heard of us before, and we are a multidisciplinary site selection and economic development consulting firm. And kind of our tagline is we solve site selection or site location challenges from two perspectives because of the economic development side to the equation. So we help companies identify their next site location decisions. We work with these companies to identify incentives and also negotiate optimal incentive opportunities with the communities. And we also help work with communities to really just present best fit projects to their areas and sites and opportunities that are going to be optimal for a lot of the projects we're working with. So that is us in a nutshell. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Couple things, mark your calendar, guys. We just came off a jam session this week. Actually, it was on, when was it? Was it on Tuesday, Brooke?
It was last Friday.
Last Friday. Oh my gosh, this
Time's
week is
flying
by. Oh my God, Christmas is upon me already. So, but these jam sessions, we decided to do these for you, the members, and the people that are a part of our elite cities. And we're going to be doing those in 2023 on every third and fourth Tuesday of the month. So you can kind of go ahead and plan for those. We keep them to 30 minutes, and that's intentional. We don't want something that you have to overly plan for. We want you to be able to pop in. We do some training in there on the portal, and we talk about leads. And so that's a good opportunity to get a more in-depth knowledge about the lead and ask some more in-depth questions. Our master series, really excited about this one coming up on January 19th. It's going to be at 1 p.m. The topic is how to incorporate artificial intelligence automation to save time and close deals faster. By doing this, we've got some really high-level skill sets that we can share with you, and how to think about it if you want to take these programs on yourself, and learn some of the techniques and strategies we do in the automation of we call it lead nurturing. So how to stay in front of your people and on their radar scope. That's January 19th at 1 p.m. This is a little opportunity just to know us a little better. I am the founder, Eric Kleinsword, started the company back in 1994. I had one vision, and that vision hasn't changed from start till now. It's to put expanding or relocating companies in touch with economic development professionals that can assist them. And the reason I feel so strong about that, it's about job creation. And we feel every job we help create makes a very positive impact on our economy. And that's probably the most fulfilling part of my job every day, is when projects land.
Yeah, and I'm Brooke Edwards. I'm the project director here at GSLI. I work directly with the decision makers for the projects that we assist on a day in and day out basis. We attend trade shows. We work directly with communities, kind of the front lines, to be able to articulate who we are, what we do, and take companies through that site location process, from the time in which they say, I need help moving my business, where do I go, to the point in which they're actually digging dirt, cutting the red ribbon. So I thoroughly enjoy this. And yeah, we go to a lot of trade shows. So this is perfect, right up our alley to fully explain just some, like Eric had said, best tips, practices, and learning points that we've learned through the years at trade shows. So
yeah, and this is a good time to throw up the poll, if we could, about trade shows. We really want to know who's has implemented or thinking about implementing a trade show program in 2023. Who's attended or planning on attending and walking, who's planning on exhibiting, who's planning on both, and who just really hasn't put together a plan. I'll give you a few minutes to answer that. I just saw Sheldon pop in here. Hey, Sheldon. Sheldon's a great example. He was on our jam session, and one of the projects that we reviewed really topped it off and brought it to his attention that they were considering Nevada, and I did receive your submission, so thank you. We're going to leave that poll up for a little bit. Just go ahead and answer it. And we will continue as we get some of those answers in. So we kind of wanted to start here by just kind of asking some really intriguing questions, or kind of things to get your brain cells flowing and to think about. But do you view trade shows as a wasted expense? They are very expensive, probably the most expensive thing that we do in our entire marketing program. And how do we justify that ROI? And is the ROI worth it? Do you struggle with measuring ROI long after the show is over? How do you do that? Everybody's excited, and we're the same. Right after a show, you're pumped, you're thrilled that you got in touch with these companies that say that they have project plans. Now, what do we got to do after that so that the ROI we invested brings a return back to my community? Do you question how productive a trade show marketing program can be for your community? It's a major investment, not only in money, but in time and staff. You've got to be prepared. When we have a trade show, we know that week is dead week for our company, and it's all about our customers and finding projects at that point. As it says, you're not alone. We've talked to hundreds of economic developers, and the pandemic really took away that decision making process for them, because trade shows went away. And now trade shows are, I'm going to tell you, they're back in full swing, and probably the best I've seen in the 28 years that we've been doing trade shows. I think there's an itch to get back out. There's an itch to shake hands and meet people face to face. So the last few shows we've been to have been really, really productive and outstanding. Brooke, if you could talk about, kind of give us a macro picture of trade shows.
Absolutely. So this is just kind of our way of saying, hey, trade shows are effective. They can be one of the most cost-effective methods for lead generation and revenue creation. And we're going to go into the ways that you can actually make sure they are a cost-effective method. And we want you guys to see trade shows and the expensive trade shows as an investment, because, and one of the stats here, it's industry dialogue, talking with peers, getting out there face to face, networking, that still ranks as one of the top 5 ways that an executive's perception of your area is actually going to be influenced. So the more you can see them, look them in the eye, shake their hands, that is so important to establish those relationships with contacts. Eric and I are members of our team. We do a lot of travel to go to these industry shows, to speak with individuals, to talk about GSLI. We do that on behalf of our members. We do that to generate leads. We do that for our company to help identify new prospects, new projects that we can work with. And so That business travel element is just amping up over the past few years, like Eric mentioned, since the pandemic. So we want to just make sure that that is still a high priority to really consider trade shows and just industry events, going to conferences, having a presence with your audience that you want to have those conversations with, and really build some rapport with those individuals. And a successful trip to a trade show may actually do more than you actually imagine, because you can be seen by your audience. You can hear about the industry's growth needs. There's a lot of challenges. There's a lot of issues out there that a lot of your industries in your local communities are facing, that you actually have to be out in front of them to better understand how to support their needs. So sometimes, whether you're identifying a project or just learning how to better suit the companies that are in your area, that is a huge benefit, just for the industry and from a business retention standpoint, to be able to know what challenges they're facing. Also, to be able to meet the right people, get in front of those CEOs, those VPs, those decision makers, for whether they're going to want to expand their business or not. You really will only know if you're able to talk with them, right? And so building that rapport is so important. And then obviously generating leads. That is the end goal, to find the leads, to generate the projects, and to get those companies interested in talking with you further from that conversation.
Sorry about that. I put myself on mute. One of the things I want to really add to that, one of the things I've noticed in trade shows, look for the guy in jeans, the guy that's just walking around. It's usually the CEO that's going on and learning about his competition, doesn't want to be the flash in the pan there. And his sales and marketing people are at the booths. So having a booth there is critical in terms of being able to stop them, go have lunch, sit down at the tables during the show. That's where some of my strongest conversations have come. And typically the CEO, unless it's a really small company, is not going to be stuck at a booth. He's got his personnel there working it. And so spot those individuals that look like they're not important, because they are probably the most important at a show. So Brooke, I already flipped ahead to this slide.
Okay, yeah, no, that was something that we wanted to just kind of put out there, that 90% of the work involved at trade shows actually happens during the planning phase. So you might think, well, what about all those leads that happen after the fact, measuring ROI against our goals and following up with all those individuals? Yeah, that's important, but you actually won't even get to that point unless you do all the pre-planning work. So that's where that 90% of all of that work is so effective to actually get you the leads in the end. Then you can do all the follow-up, then you can have a strategy with those individuals, but you won't even have the leads if you don't do 90% of the work in the beginning. So in order to really evaluate shows that you want to attend, knowing what a strategy is going to look like for your organization, we thought it'd be helpful for all of us to talk about picking the right shows, because that's where it really starts. How do you know what shows to attend? How do I know if this is a good fit for my community? How do I know if it's even going to be aligning with our marketing goals and objectives that we have to generate these types of projects? So you have to really know which event is going to be the most important to attend, and if it really just aligns with your lead generation goals. I think it's kind of like fishing. That's how I want us to think about it. If you've ever been fishing, you know this in detail, that you can catch fish if you're in the right place at the right time with the right bait. So that's exactly how we need to think about trade shows. You need to be in the right place at the right time with the right information and the right messaging to really convey that to those individuals. So doing your research in advance and really just evaluating the right shows that are out there and what's going on in the industry is going to be the first step to really working through this process. So you have to keep a few things in mind at all times. Does this align with your EDO's industry targets? Is this an industry that you guys are really looking to elevate, to expand, to grow, one that's currently thriving in your area and you want to, better retain those companies? What's the conversation that's going around in that industry? So start there. Next, does it align with your area's competitive advantages? Is it something that your area can really be a catalyst to further push those industries into success by, showcasing how your benefits and strategic competitive advantages can really add to that company's success in your area. And then also, do your marketing goals and objectives align with the show? Can you actually generate leads at this show? By having a booth or by walking the show, what's going to be most effective? So you need to start there as you're weighing, possible benefits and costs. Next, you're going to be looking for certain sources of shows that you actually need to go to. So the best way to do that is really think, okay, what are the shows out there? What are the main ones in the industry? How many attendees are going to these shows? What types of attendees do they attract? Is it a manufacturing show? Is it a distribution show? Is it a small conference for thought leadership? So really evaluating what's going to be the best fit, depending on what the 3 points we talked about up above. If it's an industry target, if it aligns with your competitive advantages, and if it aligns with your goals and objectives. Lastly, location, date and location, that's important too. Are you available and where are these shows taking place? Does it make sense to fly over to the West Coast if you're trying to attract companies out of California or from the West Coast into your area? Well, that's probably a great show that a lot of West Coast companies are going to be at. So that's a great thing to keep in mind. A tool we wanted to throw out there is one that we actually use whenever we evaluate trade shows to attend, and Eric's going to throw it here on the screen. It's just a really easy way to evaluate shows really quickly, throw in locations that you're interested in. If you're wanting to go out of the country, it gives you an option there. Categories of shows that are fit within certain industries that you're looking to attract, and also just topics that they're going to be talking about at those shows. So you can do a quick filter. We use this quite frequently when setting our trade show schedule ourselves.
Yeah, one thing to really keep in mind, when you're planning a show, if you're wanting to either walk and attend it or exhibit with us, for example, at one of the shows, really know that you're not alone. If you have a workforce issue, and workforce is throughout the United States right now in terms of people focusing on developing the workforce, you better have a cluster, because these companies that we're talking to now are saying, hey, we need workforce. That is like a leading topic that we have with them. And so if you can't go to a trade show and tell the story, we've got 3 other companies in your industry, or we'd love to bring one of those companies to the trade show and have them walk with you and share their success in your community. That company's not going to put you towards the top of their choices because of the struggles they're going through of finding workforce. I would say 10% to 20% of our companies right now that we're talking to are purely expanding because the current facilities they have can't support additional workforce. So they're moving fast and furious and trying to either expand or relocate to communities that can have that workforce. So these shows are all about industry clusters. So pick a cluster that your workforce could support.
So we want to talk through how to really maximize the benefits with your strategy in place. And there's actually 3 phases that you really need to think through before you actually attend the show, while you're at the show, and then after you come back from the show. So touching on promote. So that's one of the most important things that we focus on, is actually letting people know that you're going to be at a show. So this is after you've decided what shows that you want to attend and you're saying, hey, we have a booth here. You're letting people know. It's the most important component of the before factor, because you really need to make sure that people know to attend. You're inviting your customers, you're evaluating if you have current companies in your area that should attend with you, or if they could get additional business out of attending a show that you go to. So we focus on making sure your clients are involved, prospects know that you're attending, all your social channels are letting people know that you're going to be at the show, and that's the most important starting point. Next, you really need to think through, how are you going to capture your leads? There's a lot of different methods of lead capture. We've done multiple different methods, from writing down leads to having a jot form, a form that we fill it out real quickly at the booth, to sending things after the fact. So what's going to be best for your show, whether you are actually attending or exhibiting, that you have to think through what's going to be the best way to capture that information. Because remember, if you go to a show and you don't have a method, how do you come back with all of these business cards and organize them or know who's a hot lead? You're busy writing notes on all the cards. And I'll tell you from personal experience, it doesn't really work. And we want to just keep it organized at all times. So having a lead capture method and knowing what's going to be the best method for your organization is key.
Let me add on that a little bit. The lead capture system, make sure there's two components. It has a good source for note taking. So if you do a lead capture system at a trade show, sometimes you can't keep the notes. So keep a numbering system. Say, I take a picture, a sign in front of their name of 1, and then on a piece of paper, take 1 and take a note on that project so you can pair those up after the show. And the second is a ranking, because once you get all the data back, this last show, we had 23 leads that we had to sort through, and being able to prioritize and say, hey, these were really hot leads. And the best time to rate those leads is right there at the time of the show. So make sure you can take notes and rate each and every lead. Probably on a scale from 1 to 5 is sufficient.
Yeah, that's a great point, Eric. So we'll have a form that actually has all of the pre-built fields that we really want to evaluate about a prospect. So it'll say, is this company expanding or relocating? And we can actually check expanding, relocating, neither. Or it'll be what is the square footage that the company is looking for, and it's already pre-built. So that gives us a very quick format to be able to put in those responses and really have a profile of what that company is looking for really quickly, and to get that into the hands of either our lead qualification team at the end of the day, or just to quickly upload into a campaign, a CRM, to further follow up with those prospects with the right information that they already told us. There are so many contacts at a show. You're meeting a lot of companies, a lot of prospects. So you have to have a really clear and a very detailed form that just quickly gets that information in, so you can keep everything organized and that you don't start blending information about different projects that you identify.
Another tip, and this is kind of moving over into the during in terms of lead processing. Some people are old school. They want to do it the old fashioned way, or they don't have the dollars to do an enhanced capture system. One of the best tips I've used over the years is a 3x5 spiral index card, like a recipe book, that you take to the show. And whenever you get a card, we staple it to that sheet. We take down all the detailed notes, and we put the information. When the prospect walks away, we go into and fill out the detailed form, because we want to maximize our time with them while we're talking. But we know that we have backup. That card book or that index file book is coming home with us. We can cross-check those notes with the ones that we put into the system. And a lot of times your handwriting actually jots your memory of some additional conversation you had. So just a nice little tip there.
Eric, I'm laughing because I was reading through some of your notes and it was like chicken scratch. And then you looked through it and you're like, oh, that's exactly what that means. I had this conversation with John, and I was like,
you don't like my handwriting?
I was like, how do you know? So yes, and that is a great point. Having those meaningful conversations, I'll kind of talk about during while at the show, is so important. And so you really want to avoid any type of aggressive and pushy conversations. You really just want to focus on getting to know the needs of that company, because at the end of the day, you're assisting them with their biggest challenges. Their growth challenges and needs are what they're focused on, not what you are doing for them, but merely, I need workforce, or I can't pay my employees, or I have too much turnover, or something that's key to them even being able to put food on the table for their family. So really listening to them and getting out on the show floor, talking with them, really just having those intentional times is such a benefit at the end of the day to generating the right leads. One of our biggest things is we go to these discussions, we sit in on presentations, and we go to the networking events. Whether you have a plate of food in hand at a networking event and a drink in the other hand, you're busy kind of collaborating and chatting it up and building rapport with people that might have projects. So get out on the show floor, make those rounds. We put a lot of miles on our shoes at these events, but at the end of the day, it's what drives those those personal relations with people, to remember that you stopped by and you got to know them. Sometimes we even invite prospects to meet up with us after for a drink, or you can meet them for lunch. You can just extend a personal invite, especially if you're exhibiting at a show. That's a great opportunity because your community is already there. You already have your key business development, project development individuals at the show. So why not invite them to a dinner? Why not invite them to some type of mixer event so you can build those connections and those conversations personally, versus trying to establish all of that after the show over the phone or on Zoom. So it's much easier to do all that while you're already there.
Something I'd like to say here, this is between the during and the after. Your afters are going to be a lot more difficult unless you do some key things during the show. And one of those is a trade show giveaway. A lot of people, they don't really know the purpose of a giveaway. They just put their logo on a pin, or they put it on a squeeze ball, and they try to shove them all out the door. And by day 3, they're like, hey, take them. I don't want to take these home. Your trade show giveaway should do 2 things. It should make people stop. Your biggest and most important thing at a trade show is engagement. Are they going to stop? Once you get that conversation going, then you have a chance to capture a lead. But if they don't stop, there's no reason. But the trade show giveaway doesn't stop there. Worth County was one of our sponsors of the last show, and Brooke came up with a brilliant idea, and she came up with these gold coins, chocolate coins that were stamped and with their logo. People were stopping like crazy because they didn't know if they were poker chips, they didn't know if they were gold, they didn't know if they were chocolate. And we didn't just stop there. Whenever we gave it to them and we engaged with them, we said, hey, remember the company that gave you gold. So whenever we call you, it kind of reminds them, because they're going to have talked to thousands of people at this trade show, that they're not going to remember me, GSLI, or any of our communities 10 minutes after. But if we give them that jingle or that memory cue that, hey, remember the company that gave you gold, and Brooke's been sending out emails with the gold picture, so that people go, oh yeah, that's them, and they can really get back into the conversation. And if you use your giveaway with the right purpose, that's going to make your after way more effective.
Exactly. And, you really can talk through those things after the show to see what worked and what didn't work. And, it's important to talk with the staff that were at the show. What did they like? What did they not like? Evaluate the feedback from visitors. If a visitor was standing at your booth and had no idea what you guys do, and you actually got a chance to ask them, like, hey, what do you think about our booth? And they're like, it took me 10 minutes to look at your booth to know what you do. That's great feedback. So it's good to even solicit that while at the show, to think, okay, how can we better structure our messaging and our actual value proposition to those attendees the next show that we go to. So you really just want to see how effective was the event, compare it to what you had planned, and then what actually took place. And that's going to help you calculate your return on the investment once you start going through those leads. You want to make sure that you're always organizing the leads and devising just a plan to make sure that all the leads are followed up with. And again, make sure you know what worked, what didn't work, because that's only going to help you successfully figure out shows in the future to attend or scratch from your list.
Yeah, and on this after, I really want to put an exclamation point, because it's something we struggle with, especially when you have a hugely successful show. Now you're coming back with more information, more data that you got to get into a CRM. And that is the critical part. Get it into some sort of CRM. I'm going to tell every single GSLI Elite City member here that's here, use the portal. You can put in your own leads and you can have your own follow-up. Go ahead and put those projects in with the projects that we're generating for you, so that you can track your own individual follow-up, because you've got the contact information, you've got the things you need, but you've got to get it into a system so that you can effectively follow up and have a history of knowledge of what you've done with that project.
And that really leads well to our next slide, where we're talking about lead management. So you've got the lead, you have the prospect, the project. What do you do with it? So that there's 4 things that we really want to recommend when you're following up with your prospects. So first, make sure to get those into our CRM and make sure that they're categorized. So you're categorizing the leads and you're reading the notes on each contact. What was said? What did they like? What do they need? it all goes back to that conversation, and really just understanding, what is it that this prospect or this project or this company is really struggling with, and how can we craft our messaging to be a solution, to be in front of them with that solution that's going to fix the issues that, or at least help articulate how we can fix some of the problems that they're facing. Next is you want to further qualify them from cold to warm to someone who's actually hot. So someone who you had a conversation with that's saying, whoa, we are ready to talk about your area and we're ready to move. And so you can only do that by having all that information clearly defined in your CRM. So it's all in there. And you just want to make sure to use those notes and that secondary research that you do on that company after the fact to learn about that lead. And that'll help you kind of figure out where in the pipeline they need to be, as a cold, as a warm, or as a hot lead, and how to really follow up with all those people. Next, you're going to assign. Oh, go ahead, Eric.
Well, I was going to say, I see here several of our Elite Cities members that have Lighthouse programs with us, and that's really exciting. If you're doing a show, please reach out to us. We've got the ability to give you a form that will directly, as you input leads into the form, that you can hit enter, and when it enters, we can have it trigger a thank you for meeting me at this trade show, and it can trigger an automated campaign to do your follow-up within the same evening of you inputting that information. But we got to know if you're going, reach out to us and let us know that you're attending a show, and we'll get that programmed into your Lighthouse program, and that's really enhances your ability to follow up and keep them into your overall marketing system.
Yeah, and you can definitely use the Lighthouse campaign to do follow-up, or if you have people in your organization, you can assign those right directly to them if they have the bandwidth, the capacity to take on the follow-up. Then you'll just want to start with, okay, what are the hottest leads? Work them all the way back to the coldest ones. Start with your hots though, and make sure that the right people are following up immediately. That's so important, that you get those assigned to somebody to have a personal touch with that prospect. So when you can have someone in your booth who actually talked to John, and John gets an email from that person saying, hey, John, it was really nice talking with you. Here's a picture of our booth. And like Eric had said, I'm even sending just reminders of what our giveaways looked like. It helps them have that personal touch of like, oh yeah, I remember talking. It jogs their memory about how they engaged with your organization at that trade show. Also, you want to consider adding the leads to a campaign, just like Erica touched on. This really helps take them through the process. So, you might have 4 or 5 people in your economic development organization, but what happens with automation is you can actually look like you have 100 people in your organization because of that intense follow-up that happens after the fact. So there's, all these different touch points that you're going to have where you didn't actually have to do much, so once they're logged in your CRM, they're tracked, they're assigned as someone that's hot, warm, cold, then you know exactly how to follow up with them and each step of that pipeline that they're going to fall in, and just let that automation do the work. We do that on our side. We send emails out from our CRM, and when someone says, hey, thanks so much for the follow-up, I'd love to set up a meeting, I didn't actually have to send that myself or follow up with that prospect 4, 5, 6, 8 times to get them to respond. I just let technology do the work for me. So that can be very effective. And then lastly, focus on your post-event follow-up. So your actual messaging when you're sending information back to these people. So I kind of have this idea of, well, there's 4 different types of post-event emails. You have your reintroduction, you have your reminder, you have your reengage, and then you repeat it. So start with your reintroduction. You're providing a reminder of who you are. So in this message, it should be something about what you guys talked about, and talking about things that concerns that they might have had or issues that they're currently facing. And that's where you have that call to action to try and get them on a call and talk to you a little bit further about their project. Then I would send a reminder 2 to 3 days later, and that's just to reintroduce that reintroduction message that you first sent. And that's just to remind them that, hey, you're trying to have a conversation with them. You're very interested in talking with them. And here are the things that they mentioned again that you want to continue to follow up on.
So here's a quick tip also, I think, and one that we use a lot. While you're at the show, and we were engaged the last year with a lot of international companies, and some of these CEOs don't carry business cards. Find out if they're on LinkedIn. I would say 95% of the people we talked with were in LinkedIn. I asked them, hey, let's go right now. Let's connect with them while you're there, and go ahead and send them a message that says, hey, just met you at the show, want to get connected. And don't forget to screen capture who you just put in there, because after you hit send, you're going to go through your old, I've got over 6,000 LinkedIn contacts. So it's like, I can't remember which guy just contacted with me. So screen capture that LinkedIn so you go back, refer it, look him up, and send additional message. The more ways you can reach out and get touch points with that prospect, the better you're going to have success.
Exactly. It's only going to keep reminding them who you are, the conversation that you had, and that value that you're going to be bringing to the issues that they're currently facing. So reintroduce yourself, remind them who you are. You can re-engage with them a week later and just repeat that process. And that's something that automation can do. And something that Eric had mentioned our Lighthouse campaign does for current Lighthouse members. So it's a process, but it's really what leads to actual sales conversations, when you can just stay on that prospect until they say, yes, I'd like a meeting, or no, we're not interested.
And this here, this is kind of put a bow on all the work that you've done. And there's a very specific purpose for putting together a recap of the show. And we kind of wanted to break this down and show you, we do this for each and every show. And GSLI Elite members know, if you don't attend the show, we send this out also with the leads and the contacts. And if you're at the show, you can take this information back to say, hey, do we need to justify having a booth at a future show ourselves? So here are some of the contents that I think, or the topics that you really need to cover in a show recap, so that it can be an effective tool for future shows and for demonstrating ROI to your peers or your boards. Obviously, just a cover so that you can quickly access and know which report you're looking at. A really defined description of the show, specifically how many exhibitors, how many attendees were there, and give it kind of a general rating. I went back to 2015, and FabTech had over 50,000 attendees, and this year had 30,000. So you can see that they're not quite back to where they are, but they are. They're coming back strong. And I would say if you looked at FabTech 4 years ago, it would have been probably in the $40,000 to $50,000 or 50,000 attendee range. The next part is results. We rate them. We say these are hot leads. One's for immediate follow-up. The other ones are lukewarm, meaning we got to nurture them and find out more details about what their project entails. Put that on a specific section in your report. Observations. What did you see at the show? Did you see some new trends? This last show, they started serving lunch to the exhibitors for free, which kept people in the show and gave them an opportunity to sit. It gave us an opportunity, because we were right there across from the lunch section, to really maximize who we could talk to, and would be why we would want to seek out all those locations in the future. Recommendations. What do you recommend? Do you recommend that you go with a bigger booth, smaller booth? Do you recommend you just pull back to a walking show? Do you recommend doing the same giveaway? All the little things that you took down during the show as notes, put them in this recap. Expenses, very important. You got to know exactly what the outlay was, so you can determine what the inlay was, so you can determine what your ROI was. I will tell you, an average trade show for a 10 by 10 should be anywhere between $8,000 to $12,000. You start getting larger in the 20 by 20, you can go to 15 to 20,000. But if you can keep a 10 by 10 under $10,000, you're doing a good job. I mean, that includes everything. That's your travel, your hotel, your staff that needs to attend, your giveaways. Does not include the booth. That's an additional expense that you can reuse for each of the shows. Photos. Take photos. Have memories of what happened, what went good, who was attending. If you were a regional group and had multiple people in your region attending, or if you had the mayor there, or if you had manufacturers there, have a picture log so you can look back, and then just do your wrap up. Kind of just a quick synopsis of the show that you can share with your board. and really kind of start there when you open up that book next year to determine if it's going to continue to be on your trade show list. And this sheet will be available if anybody needs that. We'll send this out so you guys can kind of use it as a working document of how you can improve yours. We can even, well, you obviously have, most of you all here already have our Fab Tech report, so you can kind of dive in and glean off of that. ROI, the biggest question everybody asks, what's the ROI? You know, what we spend and what we get. I will tell you, trade shows are the worst ROI in 28 years for leads for us. And it's why we do them. We try to save all of our members the expense of exhibiting and doing this on their own. So we outlay those dollars so you can kind of piggyback with us, not be stuck at a booth and go out there and work the floor. But if you are manning your own booth, coming in the day before, setting up the booth, staying the day after to get home and doing all that, you want to be able to justify what you spent or know what you spent. And so quick calculation, you just take your overall expenses, less that section of what leads you generated. If you want to get more complicated, you could assign higher values to your hot leads and lower to come up with a more divisible number. 694 was this particular show for us. We felt satisfied. We've had as much as 2,200 per project lead. Doesn't mean those are bad. It just means they're more expensive. But as everyone knows, a great lead can more than justify the whole thing. But so why do you calculate your ROI? You want to see how it compares to other marketing in your program. I suggest that you do this same exercise for whatever you do. If you have lead nurture, if you have magazine advertising, whatever it is, take your total what you spent, how many leads you get, and compare it to your other marketing methods. Helps you also establish pre-show goals. Whenever you see and realize you're at the end of the day, you're investing around $600 to $1,000 per lead. It keeps you focused at a show and excited whenever you see a lead come through, because you know you've just captured that for your community, or in our case for our company and our Elite Cities members. And it assigns a value to the lead. So post-show follow-up, when somebody knows, hey, we paid $694 for this lead, do not let it slip through the cracks. Stay on top of it. Put a high degree of value. It's not like a general request from one of our other things. This is a serious lead that we shook hands with, talked with. Let's put a priority on it. Brooke, I'll let you end with this. You're on mute.
Sorry about that. We wanted you guys to walk away with 7 strategies that we as GSLI recommend to increase your trade show ROI. These are proven because they worked for us, and they might not all work for you, but they definitely have worked for us in the past, and we would highly recommend to consider all of these strategies. So doing your research, gathering information on what your goals and objectives are before you even consider a show, making sure that you're searching the target industry shows and vetting the show's potential opportunities for your economic development organization. Remember, every EDO has different industry targets, different opportunities that they want to convey to that target audience, different competitive advantages. So every show that other EDOs are going to might not be a great fit for yours. So it's really about doing that research that's going to be a best fit for your own goals and objectives. Making sure to set your budget early and really analyze whether to exhibit or to attend. Not all EDOs have the budget to be able to exhibit. That's why a lot of our members exhibit with us while we take on the brunt of that cost. Other times you can just attend and get to shake hands with all of those exhibitors while you're at the event. So just kind of figuring out what's something that you can work with in your budget that's going to make sense for that ultimate goal of maximizing your ROI. identifying your key metrics, measure and compare, just making sure you know what is your goal when you go to these events, and making sure that you can actually compare your goal to your actual realized results after the event takes place. Like Eric just showed, ROI and measuring that is so vital with every single event that you do to make sure that you're actually putting in the resources and the investment in the right tools. Next is addressing your prospects' challenges with effective marketing messaging, making sure that they know who you are. What is an economic development organization? You know, for us, they don't always know what site selectors do or what is a site location company. So we have to make sure we're always crafting our messaging and any marketing flyers or even just general ways of talking to people at the show so they can understand how we're there to help and why we can help them. Next is effectively capturing those leads, having a good lead form, a lead capture form that you develop in the beginning before you're actually at the show, and making sure to use that thing. You want to be able to put in every single lead that you capture and being able to mark them as hot, as warm, as cold, as quickly as possible. Put in your notes so that it is incredibly easy for you after the fact to look at that information, to have some recall about the notes that you left on that lead, and then to follow up effectively. And then lastly, develop a post-show strategy for lead follow-up and don't stop following up. So that's where we talked about, you've got the lead, well, now what? Making sure that you're putting them into a CRM, you're really making sure the right person is following up with your hot leads and that they have the time and capacity to, or if you don't have that time, throw them in a campaign. Make sure that they're getting the right messaging for how hot of a lead they are or how cold of a lead they are. If they just need to get an e-newsletter from you every few months, great. You know, that they might be a cold lead. If they're a hot lead and they need to be followed up with immediately after the show, who's going to do that and what's going to be the messaging to get them on a phone call? So hopefully these 7 tips are helpful for you guys to take away when you're considering how to increase your trade show ROI this next year.
So here's a quick opportunity. If anybody has, somebody just throw a question in there. We're not even sure if the poll, the questions and answers, because nobody was able to chat earlier. Throw a question in there, raise your hand or do something if you have a question and want it in there. Hopefully we've answered all your questions. I had one that was sent to me. I was actually in discussion with the community yesterday, and they said, how do we decide who to take to the trade show? I would tell you one thing: personality, personality, personality. You've got to find the most outgoing person in your organization that can reach out, grab somebody, carry on an intelligent conversation, represent your community well, but get people to stop. 90% of the challenge at a trade show is getting people to stop and engage with you. So don't necessarily go after the highest title in your company. It could be someone that really knows the ins and outs of your company and is just very engaging and very outgoing. If you feel like you're going to take a shy person that kind of wants to sit down and not get out there on the floor and walk it, it's not going to work, and your ROI is going to go through the roof. So picking the right person is very, very critical whenever you're doing that. So really ask about their, people know who their best people in their communities are.
I noticed that Kim Little with Coleman had asked a question, how many communities can attend the same show? Now, Kim, I'm wondering if you're asking about with GSLI and attendance with our association, or if you're talking about general economic developers attending large shows like FabTech. Okay, she says with GSLI. So we can have as many members as we want attend with us. Our goal is to get members to shake hands, to have those conversations, and to really represent you guys as best as we can at those shows. So we would love for all members to attend, but we know that that's not always feasible with everyone's schedules or ability to travel all the time. But we can definitely take multiple members to a show. We love doing networking events. We love going to happy hours, and we would love to just even take you over to a prospect if we meet them on the show floor. That is something that we can immediately do with members at those events. So it is completely open-ended.
Yeah, Kim, to really put an exclamation point on that, we had about 8 communities attend with us at the last trade show, and we strongly encourage to work the show, not the booth. We pay for the personnel to work the booth. We have your cell phone so that if you're out there and a company comes by, we can call you, say, hey, come back. We've set up a meeting. But there's two opportunities for, as a GSLI Elite City member, go out and work the show, work it from an educational level, see what these companies are looking for in a community like yours, so that you can go back and take that to your community and develop it. And go outside of the show, see if there's a couple corporate site locators or large site consultant firms in that city. Most of our shows are in big cities like Chicago. There's hundreds of corporate site locators in Chicago. Set up a couple meetings outside of the show to go tell your story also. We're their man in the booth, so you can really make it more effective. And I guess to add one thing that people don't realize, you don't have to be there the whole show. In fact, we always encourage you as a city to come on day two, come mid-morning day two. Day one is usually students. They're out there stealing everybody's goodies and they're learning and they're walking around. And day two, that's when the CEOs typically fly in, and you'll see a boost of attendance during day two. And so coming in the morning, working that entire day, come and work a half day the following day, and then leaving. Don't spend the extra nights at the hotels unless you just are really rocking the show and you feel it's worth it to stay sometimes 5 days. Come and work the effective days, come in, come out. We don't, in our case, since you asked, we don't have a forced schedule, and you don't have. We've had some members ask, hey, can we just sit here and work the booth? More than welcome to do that also.
Absolutely. Great question from Brian too. Can small communities combine to make more affordable, like Coleman and Ballinger? Absolutely. If they're not going with GSLI, that's a great opportunity to split the cost of a booth. As Eric mentioned, some booths can be up to 10 grand. So if you really consider splitting it with another organization, that'll save quite a bit on those costs. Now, it's probably just worth noting that most organizations that are putting on trade shows really want you to pay for your own booth. So you'd probably have to come as a regional group or some type of joint group that you have an official name for, instead of just splitting down the middle and having two different organizations, because that's kind of tough for exhibitors and attendees, well, more attendees, to know who you are and how to find you. So that show organizer might actually put their foot down saying, hey, that's not how we're going to be able to sell this booth. So I would consider kind of what we've seen at a lot of those shows is a regional group representing quite a few small communities or rural development, association, or some, small town association that represents multiple small towns. And that's the way that they can generate leads for multiple organizations at one time. It's a great question.
Yeah, one thing to think there, I've seen some state booths, and it almost humors me, because it'll be like the state of, I don't want to say any particular states, it'll be a state, but then they'll have 20 communities from that state inside that, and they almost feel like birds in a nest. And here comes a project and they all try to jump on them, and a lot of the states back it off and say you can't have your own business card, and you can't promote yourself, you got to promote the state as a whole. And we don't do that. Our members actually help each other. They'll be out and say, hey, this lead that I came across isn't good. I think our fellow member that's here could work this one. And it's a really open and inviting environment. We encourage that, because while we're at a show, that's the time to get all the footwork done, so we can go back and capture those as projects. And the more our alliance grows, the more you'll see us be able to add additional shows and do additional things. So any other questions? If not, I'm going to wrap up here. If you do, don't feel, thing. There are some non-elite city members in attendance with us today. This month is a great opportunity to get in touch with us. We're doing some incentives of podcasts and little things that can help you really gear up for 2023. So feel free to reach out to us and give us a call and drop us an email, and we'd love to reach out to you and see if there's a good match. The more communities we bring into our elite cities, the more dollars we generate to go out and perform your all's duties of finding projects. And we love trade shows. We're looking at doing a good schedule in 2023. That should be released. When is it, Brooke? When do we anticipate we'll have the full list done?
Yeah, we just got some really good feedback from members just this past week. So we're compiling all those responses, everyone's interest at different shows, different industry shows, and we're going to put that out hopefully early January. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. And that gives us the ability to see where we're going to be going too, flying all over the country too. So I'm excited to see.
All right. With that said, I want to thank everybody who attended today. We really do appreciate you guys. We hope that we're providing good tips and tricks of how to make you all better at your day-to-day jobs and better market your communities and take advantage of some of those marketing opportunities that are out there. And looking forward to 2023. I hope you all are having a wonderful holiday season. And until next time, I'd like to say thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again in January.
Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining.